Hey there, we've got a case study that honestly rattled even the most experienced engineers. A crude oil pipeline, modern, monitored, chemically treated, started to show major internal corrosion damage, and it did so way earlier than anyone predicted. Now, most of us tend to think, well, it's got an inhibitor program, we're good. That's the default mindset, right? But this case challenges that belief, big time. It turns the spotlight on something we don't always talk about enough: flow dynamics, and how they interact with corrosion protection strategies. Let's set the scene. We're looking at a 10-inch diameter crude oil pipeline, about 10 miles in length. That's not particularly long in our world, but what makes it interesting and frankly a little complicated is that this line pulls from 10 different sources, 10 producers, each with their own unique fluid profile. Flow volumes fluctuate dramatically. Some days it's moving 50,000 barrels, other days closer to 200,000. So not only is this pipeline moving a ton of oil, it's doing so under highly variable conditions: variable flow, variable chemistry, variable pressure regimes, and yes, it had an active corrosion inhibitor program throughout. But after just 5 years in service, inline inspections showed internal metal loss exceeding 50% of wall thickness in several sections. Yeah, 50%. That's not minor corrosion. That's the kind of thing that gets flagged for immediate action. So the big question becomes, why? Was it a chemical failure? Was the product corrosive? Was the inhibitor underdosed? Turns out, it wasn't any one thing. It was the combination of complex flow behavior, production tie-ins, and the hidden enemy we sometimes forget about: debris and oxygen ingress. See, the operators didn't just guess their way through this. They relied on a QIC assess corrosion hazard assessment that incorporates mechanistic flow modeling. They ran simulations. They looked at historical batch behavior and tie-in timing. And that's when the picture started to come into focus. A real culprit? Repeated debris and oxygen ingress at the tie-in points. Several of the producers were pushing tank bottom sludge into the system and dissolved oxygen because of insufficient crude oil degassing. And that trace oxygen, tiny amounts, in combination with the settling debris, was enough to trigger accelerated localized pitting corrosion, concentrated at all production side stream tie-in locations. So despite a robust chemical program, the inhibitor wasn't enough to counteract the real-world conditions. The debris and oxygen exposure overwhelmed the local inhibitor film, leading to rapid wall loss at those zones. The fix wasn't generic. It was precise. They added oxygen scavengers upstream of each tie-in. They changed the field procedures to require degassing verification. They increased monitoring frequency to trigger an alert upon any future ingress of tank bottom sludge. They added inline sensors and more representative sampling points. And, most importantly, they kept adapting the program based on live data. It's a good reminder: pipeline integrity isn't static. It's not something you check once and walk away from. It's a living process, a feedback loop. You monitor, you learn, you respond. And if the data shifts, you pivot. Be curious enough to keep investigating, and be ready to shift your approach when the evidence identifies a change. That's how we keep pipelines safe, reliable, and productive, not just for a few years, but across their entire life cycle. Until next time, this is the Trusted Pipeline Advisor podcast. Stay safe, stay sharp, and keep the slow clean.